No Luka, no defense, no shot for the Lakers. They get hammered in Phoenix. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, and no matter how or where you're getting your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, one of the 37,000 plus subscribers to the YouTube channel. However you do it, you are part of making the Locked On Podcast Network the largest sports podcast network in any known universe. I'm Brian Kamenetsky. That's Andy Kamenetsky.
They call that number one, folks.
Number one. Mm-hmm. Numero uno.
Like the opposite of what the Lakers defense is. Like there's number one, the top. That's what the Locked On Podcast Network is, the number one sports podcast network. Then there's the reverse of number one. That's what the Lakers defense is.
That was, Andy, before we get too sidetracked here, I do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Now that the housekeeping has been taken care of, Andy, I want thank God Mom couldn't see this because she's in St. Louis and they just don't broadcast this particular Laker game there. Because you know what she would have said about this game? She would have given it her classic review. That was disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mom's adjective when she doesn't approve of something. It was disgusting. And in this particular case, she would have been correct. Everybody who attended that game, at whatever they call that arena in Phoenix these days, like Talking Stick or something like that, I don't even know anymore. Every one of those fans left with at least 6 points. I mean, it was insane how bad the Lakers defense was in this game. It wasn't the only thing that went wrong in this game. And obviously the Lakers playing shorthanded, no Luka, no Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent not there. I'm not saying there weren't extenuating circumstances to at least the final score 132-108. But oh my God, this was an atrocious performance defensively.
The defense is where everything really bit the Lakers in the ass and really provided them no chance whatsoever. I know they only scored 108 points, but you have to remember the Lakers were playing at least half of the fourth quarter in garbage time. Austin Reaves was on a minutes restriction upon returning from his calf strain anyway, and this was the type of game that was going to limit his minutes returning from injury regardless. At the end of the day, LeBron said so afterwards. The offense was working well enough despite the absences there. 48% from the field, 38% from behind the arc. It was not always pretty. And if nothing else, I feel like this game was a reminder that without Luka, you could argue this team does not have an offensive foundation or frankly, even what feels like a semblance of a plan. But the defense was on every fathomable, imaginable level ridiculously bad. Like Phoenix shot 59% from the field, 41% from behind the arc, 18 of 20 at the line, 62 points in the paint, 21 second chance points. The Lakers botched pick and roll coverage. They botched off-ball coverage. As JJ mentioned after the game, and JJ was pissed about the defense in this game. He said a lot of things we'll get into, but he at one point said something to the effect of, we tried zone and we tried switching 1 through 5. When neither of those are working, right, you're kind of out of options. And
they tried regular, like whatever the defensive plan was, then they tried zone, then they tried switching.
Right.
And
it's obviously more complicated than that, but in some respects, it was actually that simple.
No, I mean, you run out of stuff. I mean, and it's not like there's some sort of scheme that the coaching staff just hasn't uncovered yet, that if they'd only do X, Y, or Z, the Lakers would go from one of the worst defensive teams in the league over the last month or so to one of the best. Like that's just not what's happening here. And they're not it's not like Luka or Rui make them a great defensive team. It's not like Gabe Vincent makes them a great defensive team. Those guys help in part because the offense, might operate a little bit better. Luka scores some points, the ball stays in the other team's bucket, whatever. But this has been a bad defensive team for a little while now, a few weeks, no matter who plays. They won that game against Utah the other day, but it's not because they were good defensively. It's because they outscored the Jazz. This is not even close to the type of defense that will advance the Lakers, multiple rounds in the playoffs. It's not even close.
Until they get their proverbial bleep together on that end of the floor to at least a respectable level. I'm not even talking lockdown, elite, thunder light level defense.
Are you going to take away their LA privileges? Take away their LA privileges.
I mean,
do it.
I wasn't even going to say I'm going to take away their LA privileges, but I think it goes without saying, to quote Marcellus Wallace, they've lost all their LA privileges for the time being. Until they get their proverbial bleep together on that end of the floor, they will remain a good, but not nearly good enough team for the goals that they all say they have for this season. And they will also leave themselves perennially vulnerable to blowouts. This is yet not just the 9th loss of the season. It is the 9th double-digit loss of the season. They have only lost by double digits. When they lose, they get their asses handed to them, and it is pretty much always because of what happens on defense.
Now, look, this isn't soccer. The standings aren't determined by goal differential. So, I mean, in some sense, it's like it doesn't matter if you lose by 5 or 15, or in the case of the Lakers, usually 25 or sometimes 35. It's still one loss. But the problem, like you mentioned this on like I'm so thrown off with the holidays. Monday's show, I think it was, that it's not like the Lakers are blowing teams out very often either. So it's like you either win by 6 or win by 8, sweep crunch time like they have, or you get annihilated.
They've had a few double-digit wins this season. They've had a few impressive wins this season.
They've had many. I think they've had a lot of pretty good wins, especially when you consider who's been in and out of the lineup.
Right.
But they're not, lapping teams where, obviously not to compare any team to the Thunder, but we're like, you're just getting past the point of counting on like 2 hands and maybe a foot how many games Shea's played in the fourth quarter. So, that kind of thing. How would you break this down? It was interesting. Like Billy Mack, if you watch the Lakers broadcasts, asked Stu at some point, Stu Lance, the analyst, like, so, what's wrong with the defense? And this was a question that was essentially presented to JJ Redick.
First of all, Billy needed to ask Stu that at the beginning of the game rather than the end, because he threw this grenade in Stu's lap with only like 45 seconds left in the game.
There wasn't enough time.
Oh, that didn't give Stu even close to enough time. No. And maybe that was Billy trying to not sound like a company man, but at the same time be a company man by not really giving Stu.
Gotta go.
Well, Stu can be brutally honest, and a mistake you could make would be to give Stu enough time to answer this.
But when JJ was asked this question, and again, multiple ways, like, what's wrong here? Like, what is the problem? And he had more than one answer, which is, I think, instructive here. This isn't a pull one card lever, change one card, play one thing differently kind of thing. The Lakers have to figure out how they can turn the tide on this a little bit, or it's going to continue to get ugly fast.
Well, I thought Stu, though, said something that was pretty instructive, and it was echoed by JJ, and we can definitely get into it next. We'll also talk about Austin Reaves' return after missing 3 games with that calf strain, DeAndre Ayton also returned 2 games with the sore elbow. But Stu said something to the effect of, I'm not at practices to see exactly all the particulars and details and intricacies of what they're installing, the schemes they're trying to execute. But whatever they are, they're not doing it.
Well,
and JJ afterwards confirmed in very angry terms, they are not executing bleep while they're out there. And it's become clear, JJ's like, look, at least in his mind, I'm telling you people what you're supposed to be doing. You're not doing it.
We'll get to this next. I thought this was a very interesting press conference for JJ Redick. So that's next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks, and the holiday season, one of the best times for sports. You got bowl games, you got big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the fun choices to make is the right call with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. You lock in your lineup, and then you're in the game. It's fast, it's simple, it's available in 45 states, including California, sweet, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy scores, field goal attempts, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. Deposits and withdrawals are easy. They're quick. They keep everything flowing. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right.
So we'll jump back into this press conference here in a minute. Do want to let people know about the Everydayer Club, Andy. We get your emails. We get your comments. We know many of you would prefer an ad-free experience, and we get it. We got to pay the bills. That's why the ads are there. But if you want something different, you can join the Everydayer Club, $5 a month, $50 a year. You get the show ad-free. And more than that, you can hang out on the Locked On Discord chats that are there, and specific to each show. If you want to engage with Lakers fans and listeners of this program outside of the time, like perhaps when we're going live, as we are for Wednesday's program, you get the all access, the ad free, all access to the ad free audio. You get the Everydayer Club Discord server. And it's, again, not too much per month, $5 a month, $50 a year. Go to lockedonlakers.supercast.com, lockedonlakers.supercast.com. If this is not for you, if you don't want to, pay for anything, that's fine. Show stays free. You listen to it just the way you have, and we appreciate you just as much. But want to let you know, Everydayer Club. That you don't often see JJ say it's not me, it's you. Like he will sometimes he'll say, yeah, that guy didn't play well, we missed this, whatever. But he, for every one of those, he tends to be like, and we got to do better, and we didn't prepare them enough, or X, Y, and Z, whatever it might be. This was not one of those things, Andy, on after Tuesday's game. It was very clear that JJ was like, no, it's you. It's not us, it's you.
He was asked because the second half, the third quarter in particular, is where things really snowballed badly defensively. Like the second quarter was trending in that direction, to be clear, but the third quarter, and really the immediate opening of the third quarter, is when the bottom dropped out. And there.
You mean when Phoenix scored on their first 13 possessions?
Well, I know that because JJ actually said that when asked about what happened in the second half. He immediately noted they scored on their first 13 possessions. If your opponent scores on their first 13 possessions unless you were playing with one hell of a lead to start that second half, you are likely to lose. JJ acknowledged that they didn't do enough to keep Phoenix out of the paint. Again, I mentioned 62 points in the paint. I think it could have been more had they kept more of the regulars out there. He also, I thought this was very telling from JJ. He said that the team often, particularly against younger, quicker teams, operates like they're stuck in mud. But he said, look, this team, I'm not directly quoting him, but this team has a low margin for error. And what he's referring to, and JJ's acknowledged this before, on paper, they do not profile to be an elite defensive team just through personnel. Everybody knows this is not a secret.
We've been there.
It's been acknowledged. But because they have a low margin for error, the execution of what they are looking to do needs to be really on point to try to offset the lack of athleticism, the lack of speed, all those different factors as best as possible. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You're probably going to still be at somewhat of a disadvantage, but you want to try to offset it to the degree that you can. That comes through execution, but it also comes through knowing what the hell you're supposed to be doing, focusing on what the hell you're supposed to be doing. And it wasn't there. This also, by the way, and I know both of us, I think in particular me, but both Brian and I have been a broken record on this. This is why effing around in some of these earlier season games against lesser opponents and being willing to coast to a win comes back to bite you, because these opportunities that you had to build the things you're supposed to be doing and getting them better against more challenging teams, you lose those opportunities. And the Lakers have already been put behind the eight ball because of all the guys who've been in and out of the lineup. This is the 17th different starting lineup in 29 games. You have to make the most of the opportunities that are in front of you. And I will argue, and have argued for all this season, the Lakers have not done that. Tonight is an example of why it matters.
Yeah, I think JJ said they have had 2 healthy games this year. This was their 17th starting lineup, I believe the number was. Nick Smith leaping into the starting lineup. And I think that's part of it. JJ was actually asked about that, like how the lack of continuity, particularly on the defensive side, 5 guys on a string, all these other things, it's hard to do that. And, I think sees it. I mean, in a lot of ways, kind of like I do, like it is a factor. It is not the factor. Like they, and Redick obviously is very sensitive about appearing to make excuses. We just haven't been healthy enough to get continuity. It's like, we practiced enough. We've gone through these things and all that kind of stuff. It hurts them on both ends, though. I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing about this is not so much that I feel like, let's say they'd taken every single possession, 100% seriously this season. No team does it, but let's just say,
how about 80%?
But right, for sure, 75, 35. I don't know what the number is, but let's just say they've done all of them. And again, no team does it. I don't think it would have kept them from losing this game. But whatever the upside that they do have, whatever the ceiling is that they can reach, it puts them further away. Because they are not a team that profiles to be good on that side of the ball, because they don't have the personnel to just, you can look at the Thunder and be like, well, that team's going to be able to defend. The Rockets team's going to be able to defend. You can't do that with the Lakers. So whatever you have at your disposal, you need to take advantage of. The Lakers obviously haven't. And so whether you think it's a huge factor or a smaller factor, it's a factor.
Well, the other reason I do think it's a factor and I think it matters is I feel, and because I think it goes hand in hand with not doing this stuff, I feel like this team often treats themselves like they have arrived more than they have, like they've accomplished more than they have. And maybe it's a byproduct of having LeBron on the roster, who has been there, done that as anybody in league history. much less anybody currently in the league now. Or a player like Luka, who is a certified top 5 player in the league. You could argue top 3. Some people would argue top 2. He's been all NBA 5 seasons in a row when he's been healthy. Like, he's one of the best players in the league by any reasonable measurement. Austin Reaves has ascended. They've got some high-end role players like Rui and Ayton, and they've got guys with talent, and they're part of an organization that has championship pedigree, at least in history, at the very least. And you and I have covered championship teams before. We've covered the Lakers for like 20 years with ESPN, the LA Times, The Athletic. We've been around teams that have won championships. It is normal for teams that have won championships or teams that have been around and know they can make deep playoff runs to sometimes coast during certain games, whether you like it or not. That's normal.
It's normal for all teams.
But
all teams do this.
Sure. But this team, though, has not proven enough of what they actually can do, in my opinion, to A, afford themselves those luxuries, or B, just assume that they can make it work when they need to. They shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't.
They have not done enough, man.
Sure, I agree that they haven't done enough. I'm not totally sure. I accept the framing of here, which is what you're saying, that they just feel like the arrogance essentially that you're talking about, where they just feel like they can turn it on and turn it off when they want.
I mean, Luka said after the Utah game, we have a habit of seeing what star players out and playing down to that.
I think most teams do this. I mean, if you go around the Locked On Podcast Network, you can hear a lot of complaining about this very thing. But I do think there is something, and I'm not saying there's none of that. Like they don't take it easy sometimes. They don't pace themselves. They don't do all that kind of stuff. You also, but there's a second part of this, really a third part of this, that I think is very relevant to why this kind of thing keeps happening. JJ referenced it after the game. We'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans just want to be there for those big moments, not stuck refreshing their screens or guessing what the tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward, intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Get in on the action.
So part of the issue here, and again, I'm not saying there's nothing going on like you're talking about. I'm not saying the Lakers couldn't play harder, shouldn't play harder, shouldn't do it with more consistency. I do think, though, there's more to it than that. Which JJ was essentially asked after the game, like, do you have a lot of guys with sort of perpetually high motors? And his answer was basically no. They have more guys. It's not that they don't play hard, but that they sometimes have to be sort of jostled. So I think there is a little bit of that. Like it is not a team with a bunch of just 1,000-mile-an-hour, say what you want about the guy Dylan Brooks types, who always play like their hair is on fire. The second part of this is they are slow. They are physically, by NBA standards, slow. And it is hard to, like, some of this, like, you're looking around the court, I feel like there's, like, you draw energy from the other guys, like moving around, flying around, do that gets you moving around, flying around. They don't have a lot of flyers. Sometimes they all kind of come together and you get that 6 minutes or 7 minutes of really high intensity defense and stuff like that. But we've talked about whether or not that's really sustainable for 82 games, 48 minutes a night. And I don't think it is. So that's part of it. And then, you get to the skill set aspect of it. Like if you go back and you watch some of the highlights from this game, there's stuff that even I am not a coach. I do not try to pretend that I understand every nuance of defense at the NBA level. But I'm watching at home going, that's clearly not what they're trying to do. That's clear. Like you can see it. And then when you break down the video and you have professionals pointing out, it's even more obvious. They make a lot of mistakes because they don't have a lot of high IQ defenders. And some of the higher energy guys they have are very limited in other ways. Like it's games without Luka, Rui, that you start to see where more of the structural flaws are on this team.
We've known about the structural flaws from the beginning. I mean, that's fine, but getting beat repeatedly on backdoor cuts, for example, that's got nothing to do with speed. That's got nothing.
Disagree. Absolutely. No, it does. It does. It has.
It doesn't have anything to do with it when you're not watching the guy that you're supposed to be minding.
You get caught backdoor because there were a couple times this happened where two guys come high to, because, both guys come out to pick up a player on the help. Nobody rotates behind. All these the rotations are bad. Somebody cuts backdoor. There's nobody there to help.
Like there's also the times where a guy gets beat just standing.
My point is, it's not just paying attention. It's also understanding defense.
Sure.
It's not, it's not just these guys fall asleep. It's that they don't have the instincts and the sort of togetherness to moving as a group to defend that stuff.
Well, that's fine, but that means they also should have been working a hell of a lot harder, focusing on it a lot more during in-game action where they had opportunities instead of, frankly, by their own admission, coasting. Like this, don't take my word for it, take their
I take some of that too as a grain of salt. Like when guys say that we can do better, it's because they have to say that they can do better.
But I've also seen them do it well. That's the thing. I've also seen them do it really well. I think you're being honestly way too easy.
And I think you're trying to boil everything down to effort and attention and structural arrogance in ways that I think.
No, I'm not, because I've always said that this team doesn't have the defenders they need. It's part of the reason I get upset that JJ doesn't try to mix the lineups a little bit more to try to find more balance in it. I think they're two separate issues. They both exist. I think they both exist a lot, but I don't think they're ever going to get better or as good as they can be, if nothing else, with what they can do until they start making an effort to bust their ass on it more frequently.
We agree on that they need to be consistently a higher effort team.
Well, then
my point is that the effort part of this has a ceiling.
It does. I would like to see them maximize this.
And the ceiling's not high enough.
That's fine. Maximize the low ceiling before you start worrying about anything else. Until they start maximizing whatever their low ceiling is, the other stuff doesn't really matter, at least unless they're going to make a trade. Like, you have to at least try to maximize what you can do regularly. I mean, and it's obvious that they're not. Again, it's obvious that they don't put their mind to it on a regular basis. DeAndre and Austin returned.
They did.
They did return.
And Austin was
not good.
Very good.
No, he wasn't. And you could tell also that's what JJ thought, because he was asked about the return and he started to say something to the degree of, it's difficult to evaluate. And then he kind of trailed off.
He was like, it was good to have him. He looked nice in his uniform,
Yeah, I mean, he said that it was good to get him back on the court. He thought he had some nice drives, which he did.
He did. Yeah.
That's actually when Austin looked his best. I'm sure there's an element of rust. I'm sure there's an element of him not being all the way back physically. Like I want to be fair to Austin in this, but he looked out of sort, particularly defensively. Like he just
awful.
He was
awful.
Really, really struggling on that end. He was struggling at times with his handle. The outside shot wasn't falling. Again, some of that may just be timing and rhythm. They played him off the bench in this game because he was on a minutes restriction. Austin talked about it afterwards, and he clearly understood the logic, and I don't think he was upset about it, but it was also clear he's like, this felt weird. Like I felt out of sorts when I was coming in and out of the game. Like this didn't feel natural in terms of getting my return as smooth as it could be.
Yeah, it was, the whole thing was higgledy-piggledy, as they said back in the day.
Did they?
They did in other countries.
That's a first.
You've watched Peppa Pig.
I have. I don't remember them saying that.
They do. The British shows, they'll say things.
But yeah, he hopefully he will look better against the Rockets on Thursday. He did say that he felt good during this game and that he was hopeful he could play more minutes. It sounded also like he'd be fine with no restriction. Let me just let me play.
Yeah,
it felt pretty clear. I thought DeAndre actually looked pretty good. I also felt awful. That you want to talk about a dude who was just abandoned defensively. This is the rare for all of DeAndre Ayton's reputation heading into this season. And excuse me, still the bronchitis getting over it. For
he
all of this,
like
dudes were leaving him out to
he would have needed 13 arms to defend him.
I mean,
it was horrible.
He actually, I thought, was probably the best in terms of what seemed to me like doing the things you're supposed to be doing and putting in the requisite effort. If Ayton was not the best out there defensively, I thought he was one of the best.
Low bar to clear.
Still.
Yeah, no, I agree. What I actually thought was more interesting, you and I were kind of texting about this, and we'll talk about it later in the week. A housekeeping note, we are not going to do a show into Thursday. So Christmas Eve into Christmas, we're taking Wednesday night off. We will obviously do a show after Thursday's game against Houston. But like later in the week, I want to talk about this because, like I said, when we were in our spirited debate moments ago, I think, when I think about like the structural issues that they had here, part of what on a night like Tuesday where Ayton was actually pretty good and pretty efficient, but they really could have used more from him in the sense of like more opportunities to get him shots, and they really couldn't. And again, and to me, like, it was reflective of sort of their limitations as a team. DeAndre only had 8 shots. He's not a guy who goes to the line. Like, that's not,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. But like, this was a night where you really would have liked to get him 15 or 16 shots, and they really couldn't.
You would actually mention that heading into this game that was your hope.
Yeah, and they just couldn't do it. And there are a lot of reasons for it that I think indicate why, even while the percentages that they shot in this game, even before crunch time, there was no crunch time. Even before garbage time, definitely no crunch time. Even before garbage time, like the percentages were fine. Except for the free throw line, they were they needed to make more free throws, but they got there plenty. They have some problems with the sort of allocation of talent and the skill sets on this team, and certain guys, including one who I was really excited about going into the season, kind of low key haven't been able to pick up the slack in ways that I hoped. That, Andy, that's a tease for a future episode. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with over 37,000 subscribers to the channel. Join the Everydayer Club if you want to get rid of the ads, and then get on that Discord chat too. But I know a lot of you really want to get rid of the ads. We will be back after Thursday's game. I hope every one of you out there has a great holiday. If you celebrate Christmas, if that's your jam, enjoy it. And we will see you after the game.